Well, thanks again for having us here today, Alana. I'm really excited to talk about such an important issue. So I think just kind of taking off of what Anastasia started with, I think Max really does represent a significant evolution in the Kremlin's approach to information controls and obviously has hugely concerning implications for freedom of expression, access to information, privacy, and security for Russian citizens. However, in this context, I think it's really important to remember that Max in and of itself should not be our primary concern, but rather the aggressive model of internet control that the implementation of Max predicts is the true challenge that we're confronted with today. So as Anastasia explained, since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the Russian government has demonstrated both the will and the technical capacity to implement a sophisticated model of total internet control. We refer to this in the Chinese context as the locknet. The Russian government has not only brought a largely decentralized infrastructure to heel, but also instituted a centralized censorship regime and made significant strides towards even more totalitizing solutions, including the much discussed RUNET, and more recently and potentially more concerning, a Chinese-style locknet supported in part by the implementation of Max. By capturing their citizens on a single app, the Kremlin, as Anastasia said, can leverage back-end control to far more effectively censor and surveil their citizens, which serves to not only teach but reinforce self-censorship among citizens themselves. Simultaneously, the app provides all the information and services a citizen is supposed to need in Russia, thereby prescribing the bounds of what should and should not be permissible within the country. When that's combined with significant impediments to accessing the global internet or non-state platforms such as censorship, meta-censorship, legal consequences, and offline consequences that we know are common in Russia, the stage is really set for near complete information control. And if this model of control is successfully implemented over a long enough period of time, it's likely, and we've seen this happen in China, to fundamentally re-engineer how Russian citizens think about, search for, and engage with independent media over the long term. I think kind of to put it most simply, I think the Kremlin really hopes to force their people to choose between convenience and ease of a super app over freedom. And over freedom until they no longer have any meaningful conception of what the global internet looks like outside of this walled garden that's been created by the state. So in this context, I think it's really important that we not confuse tactics with a longer-term strategy. Our goal should not be to compete with Russia tool for tool. I don't think that we should respond to Max with the anti-Max app, but rather to provide a compelling alternative environment where Russian citizens can continue to actively connect to the global internet and engage with a diversity of technologies and information. In this formulation, success is not about eliminating Max entirely, but more importantly, rendering it just irrelevant to the Kremlin's information control goals. And I think, honestly, in these terms and in this moment, the US government has an upper hand. We are still able to offer Russian citizens access to the entire global internet, something that they clearly remember and desire. And that is far more compelling than a single app is going to be. I think we need to work to honor and channel the desire that Russian citizens have to access tools and techniques to easily reach the global internet, and to help them to avoid the ever-increasing state-imposed friction and choke points designed by the Kremlin to discourage their access. So to do this, I think from a technological perspective, there are two things that we really need to focus on. We need to support a diversity of tools and technologies, not that respond individually tool for tool or app for app, but instead work collectively to undermine the Russian government's model as a whole. So first, we should continue to facilitate Russian citizens' access to the global internet and independent information. This means continuing to support a range of secure, privacy-enhancing circumvention tools and secure communication tools to empower Russian users and impede the Kremlin's ability to force citizens onto apps like Max. Second, we should simultaneously invest in new solutions to stay ahead of quickly evolving Russian information controls. In preparation for the next generation of Russian information controls, we should invest now in forward-looking internet freedom solutions, such as advanced circumvention techniques, novel security and privacy-enhancing technologies, and innovative shutdown mitigation tools that are becoming ever more critical in this environment, as Anastasia pointed out. I think the speed and scale with which the Russian government has prioritized and is investing in information controls only raises the stakes for the US to support internet freedom and free expression in Russia. Currently, the population in Russia still remembers how to access independent information and connect to the wider world. But like I said earlier, as we have seen in China, they risk losing